Sereno Site and Architecture Commission meeting for August 5th. We're going to turn the time over to Jeannie, who has to read in all of the legal jargon that goes with our new setup with Zoom.
Good evening, commission members, staff, and meeting participants. Thank you for joining us this evening for the August 5th, 2020 Monte Sereno Site and Architectural Commission meeting. Prior to roll call, I'd like to make it clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes, that this Site and Architectural Commission meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Brown Act and a recent executive order issued by the governor to facilitate teleconferencing to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission at public meetings. Ordinarily, the Brown Act sets strict rules for teleconferencing. It requires that each teleconference location be identified in the notice and agenda, that it be accessible to the public, that members of the public be allowed to address the commission from that location, that agenda be posted at that location, that at least one member be here in the council chambers, and that at least a quorum of the commission be participating from within Monte Sereno. The governor's executive order has suspended those rules. The executive order does require that we continue to notice meetings in advance and that we provide members of the public an opportunity to offer public comment. Here are some house rules. I'd like to point out a few things to assist the commission, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Commission members, please keep your microphones muted until you wish to speak. You have a hot mic. For this commission meeting, we're using Zoom to host the meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues, such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use the raise hand if you would like to be recognized and enabled to speak to the commission by the chairperson. For the public to comment under oral communications or on any agenda item, emails can be submitted to the city planner, limited to 350 words, and they will be read into the record. This limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participation from telephone will allow for listening only and does not allow for any feedback. And finally, because we are not all in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Thank you, Jeannie. We'll turn the time over here for roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Kroc, Commissioner White, Commissioner Mekachuk.
Here.
Commissioner Wade.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Harrington.
Here.
Just to note, Commissioners Kroc and Chairperson White are absent, but we do have a quorum for this evening.
Thank you, Jeannie. Do we have any orders of the day?
Nope, everything's as per the agenda.
Okay, next, would anyone like to approve the minutes from the July 8th meeting?
So moved. I'll second it. Brian can approve first it.
Jeannie, do you do on this, do you ask each person?
I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Mekachuk moved for approval. Commissioner Wade seconded. Roll call. Commissioner Mekachuk?
Yes.
Commissioner Wade?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Harrington?
Yes.
So just to note, that was passed 3-0-2 with Commissioner Kroc and Chairperson White absent. I do see that Commissioner Kroc is trying to dial in, so I think if we can open it up for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda and see if
Okay.
she gets in.
Okay, so would anyone like to speak to any item that is not on our agenda tonight? I don't see any hands raised. So, oh wait, I do see a hand raised. Hold on a second. I believe, here, can we, I think it's the neighbor that wants to speak on the garage issue. Did you want to speak on, I see that the hand is raised by Jeff, and I'm wondering if this has to do with the agenda item. If it is, that's reserved for when we open the agenda item up.
Actually, I had sent an email to Jeannie. It was kind of a last minute concern regarding the placement of the addition in relationship to the driveway.
I did receive that, and I have forwarded it to the commissioners. So Jeff, if you want to read that into the record, you're more than welcome to, or I can read it into the record when the public hearing for that item comes up.
Okay, I'll just wait for you to read it in.
Okay.
Thank you. We're waiting for Jennifer. Is she on? Okay, great. So Jennifer is now on.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm in a really bad data place apparently, but I'm here.
Okay.
We're so glad you're here. Thank you.
So I'm going to note that Commissioner Kroc just arrived, so we do have 4 commissioners present.
Moving on to our only agenda item, we'll have Jeannie introduce the item.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. What you have before you is a site development permit for the property at 15931 Rose Avenue. What's being proposed is a project that consists of a remodel and addition to an existing 2-story home. The proposal includes approximately 1,397 square feet of square foot addition to the first floor, as well as an attached 3-car garage of approximately 971 square feet. The garage is built into the hill at the front of the property, so most of it is at the basement level, but daylights a little bit at the front. It also includes conversion of the existing 2-story portion of the home to an attached accessory dwelling unit, which I mentioned that, but again, that ADU and its configuration and whatnot really is not subject to the discretionary portion of this permit. Additionally, the existing detached 2-car garage will be renovated into a 1-car garage with some additional workout or storage space. This request also includes the removal of 4 trees, one of them being a significant tree as defined per the Monte Sereno Municipal Code. It's a Douglas fir tree that measures approximately 56 inches in circumference. The 3 other trees are identified as unsuitable. They are acacia trees, so technically they do not need site and architecture's approval to be removed. That can be done at the staff level. If you take a look at the proposal, and if you've been by the site, the existing home was built in, the late 50s, I believe, or the 50s. So it's kind of up and out of sight. This hill does have a significant slope at the front of the property and then levels out. The proposal does bring, I think, a significant architectural change to the existing structure. However, it's a design that is pretty contemporary or typical with those homes you see in the Rose Andrews neighborhood. What it also does is it brings that home out and down to the streetscape, whereas right now on that side of Rose Avenue, you really don't have any streetscape as far as residential, uh, a residential face to that side of the street. So it does bring some activity or residential street presence to that part of Rose Avenue. We did get comments presented on the proposal, two of which were forwarded earlier to the commission, and the third was where is it here? Oh, I got to get it forwarded just this evening from a neighbor. So at the point at which the public hearing is opened up and resident comment, I will go ahead and read that third one into the record at that time. As in response to some of the comments submitted on the project related to trees, the applicant did go back, or the applicant's representative did go back and have an arborist do a report. And as a result of that, there were some modifications to the front of the site plan related to the walkway and its potential intrusion into the zone of an oak tree that's on an adjacent property. So those revised sheets were forwarded to the commission as well as attached to the agenda item. As from staff's review and analysis, hang on, I'm working, there are specific findings that are needed to be made by the commission, and in staff's analysis related to the site development portion of it, staff believes that the proposed improvements do retain the existing character of the neighborhood in which it's located, and that the proposed addition to the existing home updates the design of this older home in expanding the living area out to the street and bringing it down to the street level by placing the garage accessible directly off the street. It's more contemporary and compatible with the newer homes in the neighborhood. The proposed addition with the garage at street level creates a more pleasing visual impact than the currently existing overgrown hillside that comes straight off the street. The proposed garage is built in the hill, thus minimizing the visual impact that a garage would otherwise have on the streetscape. This proposed improvement, staff believes, is consistent with the city's guidelines, and that the new design of the proposed home is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood of varied architecture, and it utilizes the existing home's footprint and expands out from it. Additionally, the proposed addition and expansion of the existing home makes use of the current structure at the top of the hill and expands the home at that same level while also utilizing the hillside to place the garage and kind of bury the garage in the hillside. Any grading that's done on this lot is really to accommodate the garage within the hillside. With respect to the tree removals, the Douglas fir tree that's proposed to be removed is located within the area of expansion and would not allow for the property owner to take advantage of the 6-foot setback that's allowed in the R18 zoning district, which all other properties do have the ability to take advantage of. The removal of this tree will not adversely affect soil erosion or soil retention or divert or increase the flow of surface waters, and that construction that's occurring will manage any increased runoff and will be designed as to not increase soil erosion. The removal of this tree will not affect the established standard of the area nor affect surrounding property values, in that the project will include substantial new landscaping, including the planting of 8 24-inch box trees. And the removal will not affect the number of trees the property can support according to good forestry practices, in that there are existing trees on the property to remain that will not be impacted, and additional trees planted as replacement of not only the Douglas fir removed, but the other unsuitable acacia trees at a ratio of 2 to 1. So based on those facts and findings, staff recommends that the commission approve the site development permit as proposed. Staff is available for questions.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, I had a question for Jeannie. I just wanted, if you could clarify how the height is determined of the building when you have a garage on a basement or level like that.
The definition of building height is, and I have to pull it up here, is when there's a basement and or crawl space. I believe it's the average natural grade that it's calculated from, but let me.
But isn't when you daylight it and the garage doors would be considered daylighting, doesn't it count from that point to the?
Not from the base of the, but at the point which it's no longer considered a basement.
And is there a definition where it's no longer?
When it's more than 48 inches above grade.
Okay, so the whole front face of the garage would be considered not basement, correct, under that definition?
It would just be that upper portion. I mean, it's not when you really, well, let me pull up this definition. Hang on. Can I pull up? I need to go back to that screen. Okay. Okay, so building height means the vertical distance measured from the natural grade or finished grade, whichever is lower, to the point of the structure above, except where a crawl space, basement, or daylight basement exists. In the areas where a crawl space, basement, or daylight basement exists, building height shall be calculated from the average natural grade to the point of the structure above. So it also includes the daylight basement portion.
Okay, all right.
So,
So,
and a basement or daylight basement is any habitable space contained within, well, and this isn't necessarily habitable space, but the basement portion is where a portion of the floor above does not exceed 48 inches above the finished grade along the perimeter of the building footprint.
so can you just for my mental, I just trying to get it straight in my head. The total height of the building, because it's not like the second story that's existing that's going to be remodeled behind it is not dimensioned on the plan. How tall is the building? I mean, you can kind of figure it out, but
To the existing,
so I'm looking at page A 4.0,
uh-huh,
okay? And I'm looking at the front elevation of the house.
mhm.
And I'm looking at the line where I have for the single story allowance, but then there's the second story that's behind it that exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the distance from the top of that second story to the bottom of the garage door?
Well, that second story is way off. So you would only measure that height. You wouldn't measure it relative to the portion that it's not over.
Even though it's one building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you just measure the height over, like and it's maybe you should have it there, but it's existing, so it's not going higher or lower. So it is what it is. So
Okay. We
I
can move on.
see
I'm
Heather's
sorry.
point there, though. You know, it's back, but
mhm.
what is the rule for how far back? I mean, what if it was just a 10-foot setback off the first floor? Would you say, well, that's back and then it doesn't count? Or where does it not? I want to make sure we're not
So
allowing
building height is the vertical distance measured from the natural grade or finished grade, whichever is lower, to the point of the structure above.
But the structure
So-
would be considered one, we're not calling this 3 structures, right?
This is
Like
all one
this is
structure.
one,
The structure is straight
structure.
above. It's a vertical distance above. So if you're not hitting that second story, you don't go to it. So not until you get to that second story. It's not a virtual plane. You don't bring a virtual plane out from that second story.
So back to
So
my
literally
point,
you could,
if it was only set back 10 feet, say, not, not half the house distance. What if it was only set back 5 or 10 feet, just some small distance,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't count it?
You wouldn't count what? If I was measuring the height of the building
Yeah,
and a two-story portion was above a basement, I would go from the average natural grade to the top of that second story to the first floor to make sure it conformed with the first floor height limitations, and then straight up to the second floor. But if as I'm going up, if there's no second story portion there, I don't have to measure for the second floor. I only measure for that height at the point at which it's 2 stories.
so
So not to-
you can have a 3-story building then, if as
No,
long as the second floor is held back 5 feet or a few feet?
no,
Oh.
at any given point, you cannot have more than 2 stories.
I guess I'm just trying to
So
understand
you
how
may
far
look
it
at
has to be
this,
set back.
and if you just look at it one dimensionally, you may think you're seeing 3 floors,
Mhm.
but it's not, because it's staggered back. I mean, that's the whole discussion of why. I mean, some people say, well, if you step a house back up a hill and it's got 5 levels and I'm looking at it straight on, it may look like several stories, but it's not. It's single story at any given point.
I see.
You have to
That
look
makes
at
sense?
A4.0 and you can see it following the hillside there.
Yeah, I see that it does step back. I'm just wondering what the distance has to be, if there's a set distance for how far back it has to be before it doesn't count, I guess.
Well, the only setbacks that are required are the difference between a first story and a second story side setback, front setback, and rear setback. So in the setbacks itself, there are the minimum setbacks,
Mhm.
and then you are allowed to increase the height in the case of an R18 at a 1-to-1 ratio. For example, the first floor height limitations are 14 feet at that 6-foot setback. As the structure, at 15 feet in, you can go up to 16. So that's how the height of buildings are limited, up to a maximum of 21 feet for the single story portion.
Right. And I guess at no point is the second story over the garage.
Correct.
So it's at that,
Correct.
as soon as it's not over the garage, then it doesn't add into the overall height in
If
that area.
technically, if that,
Can I just break in here and say I think we're getting into weeds that have already been mowed by the planning department, because I don't think they would have approved something that wasn't to code.
well, I think the question is good, because a lot of times when you do see these kind of basements that are built into the hills, there's the perception that it's a story, but it's not. It's considered a basement, or a portion of it's a daylight basement. But you're seeing 2 floors, but that garage level is not considered a story by definition in our Muni code.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's a typical question. I think we don't see these that often. So we kind of have to walk through that discussion to feel comfortable that it's not a 2-story home or a 3-story home at any given point.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clear on it and make sure everybody who's attending the meeting is clear on it also, to potentially head off any questions on this.
No, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you,
And
Jeannie.
thank you, Jeannie. I really appreciate the explanation. Sorry for all of you that had to muddle through that with us. Okay, so is there an applicant for the owner, or the owner that would like to speak on behalf of this project? Okay, Tony.
Yes, this is Tony Jeans. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think in the light of the discussion that just went on, could whoever is in control please pull up the submitted set of plans and display them?
Can you do a screen share over there? But can you do it from yours now?
I'm not allowed to, according.
Oh, no, I'm talking to Jeannie. Sorry, I'm in the same room as Jeannie. Sorry, you guys aren't all here. We're working on it. Hold on a second. We have to see if that's possible. You have to bear with us. This is all kind of new to all of us.
No, that's okay.
There's some technical difficulties. I think we kind of understand on that point, Tony, how it was determined. I just felt that it was worth having the clarification so that everybody understands how it was perceived on the height. So I think we get it.
Oh, okay, well, while someone's looking for that, let me talk a little bit about why we did this. Because it's an interesting property, because the 2 homes share a common driveway. The one on the right and this one share a common driveway. And it was pretty obvious that there was a little bit of a potential issue with parking up at the top. There's only one garage for the 2 houses. It's a 2-car at the moment. And I felt that if we could put a garage down at the street, we could remove one of the houses. Well, stay on that one initially. So you can see on the front that you have the 3 garages at the front. And in fact, this line, which I'm pointing at that you can't see my cursor, there's a line running across the garage doors. If you look at that line is the existing grade. Anything below that is basement. Anything above that is above grade. And in fact, it's only the very far right portion. If you could move on to page A4.0, which is about 7 pages in. If you can flip down. Okay, that one there. So the line running across the garage, that is the current grade. And if you take into account the fact that you're allowed 48 inches of daylight basement, you start measuring your height of the house, which I have shown as a 21-foot height limit. And that dotted line is the height that I am allowed to build that front portion of the house up to. It also shows you the clips because I have to go up 14 feet and then clip in at a 45-degree angle. The other thing that we've done with this particular house is held the right-hand side of the building in. Instead of a 6-foot setback, we've held it in an additional 2 feet for an 8-foot setback. One, because of the proximity to the driveway, we were trying to stay at least 3 feet away from the driveway. And the other is that we felt that it was a little too intrusive. So that is what we have tried to do to solve the parking problem up above. I'm going to ask you to go back to actually a late submission, which is, I think it was called an additional submittal, and it was 2 sheets of plans. If you could find that, and while you're looking for that, I will tell you what I'm going to talk about. I'm not sure if she's a resident of Monte Sereno, but a neighbor comment came in from planning from Jyoti Reddy saying that I needed to address some tree issues. Because of that letter, I did. So I want to thank Jyoti for that. And if you can raise it up a little, because it's the front of this that I really want to look at more. Okay, on the left-hand side, you see tree number 9 on the bottom left-hand corner. I originally had that retaining wall, which is only 2 feet high, and it's a gravity dry stacked wall. So there was no foundation to it, but it came within the tree protection zone of 10 feet of that tree. So I held it back so that that tree, even though it's not a particularly great specimen, would not be damaged by the construction. Additionally, when that report was done, the arborist said that the tree right in the center, the big 9-foot, it's a 5-foot redwood with a 9-foot protection fence around it, right at the bottom left. That tree, he says, really should be removed. And I'm going to ask you as to whether or not at this meeting you think it should be. We would like to try and save it, but we understand, based on the arborist report, that that tree should have had, instead of a 9-foot radius, it should have had a 30-foot radius protection zone around it. And that is in part because of the size of the tree, and also because it has suffered very badly over the last decade in the drought. And the arborist believes that it probably won't survive, but he's given us recommendations as to what we might try to do to allow it to survive. But I'm very nervous about his comments in his arborist report. So I would ask you to consider allowing the removal of that tree as an option and replacing it with 2 or 3 additional trees down in this front area. Now, I'm on the fence. I really don't mind which way you go there. We are perfectly willing to try to save the tree. If you go to the next sheet, please, down one. Could you go to the next page? In that same area, you can see that there is a drainage infiltration area, which is going to be built into that area. There's one in the backyard and there's one in the front yard, and this is necessary for mitigation of impervious coverage and to control runoff from the property. But when you start looking at how impacted that tree might be, even though the arborist has told us how we have to deal with it, I am concerned. So please talk about that and let us know whether you would like us, A, to try to save it with the understanding that it might die, and 2, if you'd like us to take it out and plant 2 trees and plan on that accordingly. I don't have a lot of other things to really talk about. There was, I can see Mr. Franks is about to talk, so I will comment on the proximity of the driveway to the garage and the structure later. And I know that he has a concern about retaining the existing garage at the back. It is on his property, but there is an easement to allow this. I personally would like to work with him and with planning to pick it up and relocate it, but I'm not suggesting that at this meeting. I would just want to bring the existing garage, which is in a pretty sorry state, but not as bad as many other buildings that I've seen. We'd like to remodel it to make it look better, drop it down to a single car garage, so that the ADU on the top will have a parking space that is covered, and come back later after discussions with Jeannie and the neighbor to see if there is an opportunity to relocate it further onto the property. That said, I'm not asking for that now because it's not your purview to do that. It is a non-conforming structure, and that would have to go to the town council anyway. But I would like to talk to Jeannie and the neighbor to see if we can achieve that, because I think it would be beneficial to everyone, but it's not part of this request. If you have any questions of me, I would be delighted to answer them. Otherwise, I'll save any other comments to wrap up at the end of the hearing after listening to other people. Thank you.
Tony, could you walk us through the materials palette? You have a white stucco or kind of an off-white stucco. Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, it didn't come through very well on the picture. It is a light, very light tan color, gray tan, a taupey gray, but very light. It is not white. Okay. The windows are either, they're dark bronze with an anodized finish on them. They're wood windows. And I've got 2 different profiles of them that, again, don't show very well, unfortunately. The roof is a composition shake, which is going to be one of 2 colors, which again didn't come through very well on your list, but it's a taupey brown color. I think.
Thank you. I appreciate you walking us through that because it was really hard to tell from.
Yeah, I looked at that and I thought, whoa! And I'm not I'm not looking at my original in front of me, but I'm going from memory the way I designed it. I don't know how to better show that. I scanned it and sent it in, and each level of misdirection appears to have faded the colors.
I think that's the challenge of doing this, you know, the way we're doing it now. We don't have a physical board to look at, but thank you for clarifying that. It makes me feel better.
Hey, Tony, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Steve Wade here. Hey, so the that parking easement that's kind of that arrowhead shape that kind of is shared by both properties, that's for the benefit of both properties, correct?
Yeah, the way it's written, each of the two properties up there can use the respective person's area for turning around, and they tend to use their own side for parking, although theoretically, my reading of the easement, I'm going from recollection, they could even park on the opposite side.
Okay.
But there's not a lot of room. I'm trying to make it more usable in actively putting a double reversing area that is a little more usable than the triangle that was before. So I'm going beyond it in one area. The reason I need to do that is my feeling is that when someone is coming home with groceries or heavy loads, that they'll want to come up here and then unload at the main level rather than going into the garage and carrying stuff up the stairs. I'm not proposing a dumbwaiter. I probably could have, but the owner did not ask me to do that. That might come out in the final plans, but that's inside the building.
Right. All right, great. And is there any proposed construction, new construction within that easement?
No, only driveways and plantings and making it look nice. I'm trying to put some trees up there and put some screening and provide a better reversing area on my side of the property line, in the hope that most of the parking by the occupant will be done in the 3-car garage underneath, and it should be more available for the occupant of the ADU and also the occupant on the right-hand house.
Okay.
So I think it'll be beneficial all around having the 3-car garage as a daylight basement coming down to the street.
Okay, so there's no new structure going in that easement. It's
No, the garage is not moving in
Gotcha.
this application, even though I would like to slide it across to the property line and move it back a little bit, not part of this application. I will talk to the owner of the property on the right, and then see if we can twist Jeannie's arm not to object too much to what we want to try and do together if we think it can be achieved.
Thanks for clarifying.
I have a question. Regarding the tree at the front, which side of the property line is the tree on?
There is half the tree is in the public right-of-way and half the tree is on the property. And there's the property.
Just a second. Where is it relative to the property line? Can you go back to the other, or can you zoom in? Because to me, I don't see that as a I think that's the property line, the dash, long dash, double dash. Or maybe I'm wrong.
The long dash, double dash line is the property line. It comes down the driveway on the right-hand side. It goes along the bottom about 10 or so feet in from Rose Avenue. Rose Avenue is actually, 10 feet further away. And then there is a neighbor's, at the corner, there is a neighbor's tree about 2 feet from the property line. So if you're talking about the redwood, it is on the property line at the front, half in the right of way, half on the actual.
Just forgive me. It's not the right of way. It is the city of Monte Sereno, I believe. Half of it is in the city of Monte Sereno.
Correct. I normally call it a right-of-way. It's owned by the city of Monte Sereno up to the middle of the street. And the other side of the street, I think, is owned by Los Gatos. Across the street is Los Gatos. On this side of the street is Monte Sereno. So that probably throws even more into the melting pot when you're trying to think of what should happen to that redwood. And look, I leave this up to you. I will do my best to see if we can persuade the engineering department to relocate that detention area to the back, or at least move it further away from the tree. But I do believe it has to be there based on the calculations for drainage. I will do my best to save the tree if you tell me that's what you want to try to do.
Those are my questions.
This is the city planner. With respect to the disposition of that redwood tree for this evening's hearing, it was not part of the noticed project. So there is not people have not been given adequate notice that there might be the potential to remove that tree. So we really can't approve the removal of it tonight. It would need to come back through a public hearing process and duly noticed to the area residents relative to any potential removal. What the commission could potentially do that, condition that every effort be made, including, the refined drainage plan to protect that tree, and should it fall into ill health over the course of the construction and a year thereafter, the applicant would be responsible for a suitable replacement. But you don't necessarily want to encourage the demise of that tree, but you want to encourage the protection of it and continued protection of it once the project is finished.
Okay, so if I am still allowed to talk, I would then say the arborist report does contain recommendations as to how best to try to save the tree, and we will do that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Tony as for the commissioners only at this point?
Not I.
Okay. Did you have one, Steve?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. We're going to open up to the public hearing. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on behalf of this project, or on behalf about this project? Looks like Jay Reddy. Can you guys open up her mic, or has her hand up? Oh, I can do that. Oh, go ahead, Jay Reddy. If you can unmute yourself, and you have the floor.
Everybody can hear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Jyoti Reddy. And first off, Tony had a question about my residency status before, so I'll clarify it to him once and for all, to him and everybody listening in. I'm the owner of Greenwood property from the last 2.5 years. And I've been paying property taxes as well that fund a lot of city improvements. Also, this is a public hearing meeting, so anybody can comment as my understanding. So with that introduction, not sure where to begin talking about this project design, and it's particularly distressing to see it's being proposed by someone, an unlicensed draftsman at best, who keeps coming to other city project meetings, dissing other licensed architects. But that's not the goal of the project discussion today. I'm going to be brief and focus on the project specifically. So when I look at the elevations of this project from anywhere, all I see is a huge 3-car garage facade that's prominently occupying 2/3 of the street facade with 5-foot retaining walls visible, the very same design elements that are pointed by the design as not being Monte Sereno design guidelines. It looks like a flat, compressed 3-story tract home that has been squished on a hilltop. There's no design worth speaking of. And if you look at the left, right, and rear elevations, it's a 20-foot tall stucco walls and nothing to break the walls in terms of design elements that neighbors will be looking at day in and day out. The balcony elements facing the street front are ugly, unnecessary, unless it's just a Juliet or a non-functional balcony, step-out balcony, as the footprint wasn't indicated in the plans. Also, the tree production zones proposed by the designer were deceptive, with grading proposed in the close proximity of 3 native trees prior to my comment letter, which you must have received last week. I see that the plans have since been revised with a late-breaking arborist report that are now calling for 5 to 6 times the TPZ. I'm concerned about the 5-foot diameter redwood tree that Commissioner Bryan has asked about in the front that will be most impacted by this project. And I would recommend finding a solution that does not impact this tree and not allow grading within the tree protection zone. Also, the walkway extending into the city's right-of-way and grading being done without the city engineering department being engaged should be noted. And the walkway should not be extended and use pedestrian right-of-way. As I see right now in the site plans and the grading plans, in at least 2 foot of a difference in the grades that are being proposed, and that right-of-way is being graded as well, and that should be noted by the engineering department. And I don't see any cross sections of whether the driveway or the walkway constructions or the colors of the materials used in the project, as Commissioner Harrington has pointed out. I'm wondering why this was not required as a color PDF submission. And the discussion about the structure in the back raised by the neighbor is a very important one and should not be brushed aside, as Tony cleverly has done, as being outside the purview of the site and architectural approvals. If that is indeed the case, then the revised plans must be submitted showing clearly, including the driveways and the landscape on the shared easement, and the neighbor's approval must be obtained as well for the design. That's all, those are my comments for today. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this project? Jeff Frank, just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can speak now.
Okay, Jeff Franks, I know I have a couple of comments that were submitted in writing and Jeannie was going to read those. Should I wait until after those?
No, please, now's an appropriate time. We'd love to hear you can go ahead and read the letter in and whatever comments you might have.
Okay, well, I don't have the letter in front of me, but
okay.
So as Tony pointed out, the project, they share a common driveway, and originally there were 2 identical houses up there, and each had a 2-car garage. And my concern with the garage is that if it remains and if there's a 6-foot setback, I'll essentially be squeezed off my property. I won't be able to put my own garage there. And Tony suggested that we meet with the city planner, and I'm willing to do that. I just want to make sure that that my property isn't impacted in that way. And the second issue, which I sent in late in an email, and this has to do with the proximity of the addition to the driveway. And so there will be a corner of this house that is very close to the driveway, and in fact will come out over what is currently paved turnaround area. And I'm worried that people in my house are going to back into that. I mean, it sticks out. And so those are the 2 issues that I have. And I'll turn it back over and
I actually had a couple questions for you just
Sure.
to clarify on the easement for that garage. I mean, it shows on, we're looking at the site plan, it looks like it's just maybe a foot or two past where that garage is located now is where the easement goes. Is there like a setback along that garage? How far over does the easement go?
well, the garage, the old two-car garage that I think should be removed sits about 5 feet over onto my property.
Okay.
And
And the easement goes over how far? If the garage is 5 feet into your property,
well,
how
that's the
far is that
easement.
easement?
They have an easement to for as long
Just
as
where
that.
the garage sits?
Yeah, where the garage sits.
Okay. We need to maybe clarify that, but okay, just trying to clarify. Okay.
Well, about that, I have a question about the easement. Is the easement, you said, someone said earlier that it's for turnaround, so the easement does not include a structure permission? I'm a little confused on what the easement is.
There's a number of easements up there. So the turnaround, which I believe was on the diagram, that's, in fact, that part of it, the details of that, I was not aware of, but that's to allow people at both properties to be able to turn around because they're in close proximity there. There's no way you could just stay on your property. They share the same driveway going up that hill. They share kind of a common turnaround area. So that's one easement. And then the other is my property line, or the property line goes through their garage, and about 5 feet of it sits on my property. And at one time there was, my property also had a identical garage, and the retaining wall was falling down, and so the garage was removed and the retaining wall was rebuilt. And so now, and this was, I guess, would be a question for Jeannie, but my understanding is with a 6 foot, that it would have, if I were to rebuild our garage, I'd have to put a 6 foot setback. Well, there's no room for me to do that. Originally, the garages were very close together.
So, question for you, the way the easement reads, if let's just say the garage goes away, the one that's there, can you build yourself on that easement? Like, how is it legally worded?
Just for me to comment that these are easements between private parties, and although it's interesting to discuss and understand what they all mean, the reality is it's nothing that the city enforces. Clearly, when construction comes in, even if there are landscape improvements proposed in an easement, we'll highly suggest that they not be there, but they are things that you know, really are between the private parties. So not to say don't spend your time on it, but it's nothing that the city can compel the removal of and or really dissect the wording of it, because we don't play a role in them. As to eventual modifications to that accessory structure, clearly the city's going to want to see any new structure conform with the zoning and the building code. So
And at
any
what point?
future distance, if they want to come in in the distance, if they want to come in and understand what the city's ultimate position on any new accessory structure or relocated accessory structure on the subject parcel, it would be in conformance with the zoning and the building code.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Jeannie. Okay.
Heather,
Yes.
Can I share my screen for a moment?
Can he share his screen? Just a second. Let me figure out if that's possible. Brian Mekachek. We're working on it.
Okay, you'll find it interesting.
Brian, do you have a shared screen icon on your, at the bottom?
Share screen, yep,
Go ahead and click on that.
got it. Okay, can you see this on the screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
This is from a photograph from, an aerial photograph from 1954. And here you can see the road going in. And here's the shared driveway and the two garages that were referred to and the two houses. I'll just zoom out for a sec. And you can see what the land was like around there at that point in time. I just thought it would give some perspective from 1954. So the houses were built pre-54, and they were mirror images of each other. I just thought that was kind of interesting. So.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
It
That was
is, yeah.
cool.
Would anyone else like to speak on behalf or on this project? Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this point, and the commissioners will bring it back and talk amongst ourselves. Jeannie, did you have anything you needed to read in?
I was going to go ahead and just read Jeff Frank's email. It said, "Hi Jeannie, I have one more concern related to the project. The proposed addition at the front of the property sticks out into what is now the paved turnaround at the top of the driveway. I believe it will present a hazard to vehicles trying to turn around in the parking area. I think it should be moved back sufficiently to prevent accidents. Attached are pictures showing where the addition will sit in the turnaround." And again, I had forwarded this to the commissioners. So as I mentioned before, you know, we'll have the easements. All easements need to be identified and located on the construction drawings. And to the extent there are any structures or that violate the provisions of the easements, the city can ensure that, you know, they don't get there, because that'll cause a lot of problems. As far as any, you know, any landscaping or treatment, again, to the extent that we encourage the property owners not to place stuff within those easements because they might potentially be violating them, we'll advise them of that, but we can't enforce them per se. As to anything that's showing in the public right-of-way on these plans, as in the past, we are not approving those. Those will have to be negotiated. Typically, we require, you know, a curb and gutter that's appropriate for the area, and the city engineer had reviewed these plans. Anything that, you know, is proposed to be constructed, as well as the driveway encroachments, will have to go through the appropriate encroachment permit process.
Thank you, Jeannie. Before we go back to the commission, Tony has his hand up, so we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing back up and let Tony Jean speak. Go ahead, Tony.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I just wanted to answer some of the comments that are brought up so that you don't have to agonize over all of them. Jyoti's comment, yes, that is a Juliet balcony above the garage. She's right, a large balcony would be silly. The retaining walls on the two sides are to allow the daylight basement to come to the street, and they are not just for display. And then relating to the garage at the back is in an easement. Yes, it is on the neighbor's property. It's about 1 foot from the edge of the garage to the easement. I did suggest that one of the options that we might have is for him to build a 2-car garage attached to the existing garage that we have there, to make one structure with a 2-car garage for him and a 1-car garage for us. That would in fact be 6 feet from his property line, so he would not be losing any beneficial use of his property. We would just have to have a 1-hour fire rated wall between the two portions of the structure. But that is something that can be discussed later. I absolutely agree that we should move the parking area that is shown on the site plan a little further up the page, so that the reversing area is not so close to the building itself. I think that's a good idea, and I will make that change for the final drawing. And Jeannie can by all means monitor that, but I will move it further away from the building. Turnaround easement, yes, there's a turnaround easement and a garage easement. They're separate easements. The interesting photograph that you showed, the 2 mirror image buildings, it was very interesting. When the 2nd story was added to that left hand of the 2 mirror image buildings, they did not take the roof off. They actually built the new 2nd story above the existing roof. The existing roof is still below the floor, above the ceiling of the building below. So structurally, it's very interesting. And that is why the building looks a little higher than it might normally be, because you have the floor for the 2nd story, which is now the ADU, at 12 feet up in the air, because it bridges the existing or the original roof of the old building. So yeah, there's a lot going on with that building that is very interesting if you look at it historically. I think that's all I had to comment on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate clarification on all those comments. So we're now going to close the public hearing and bring it back. I am having computer issues, so I may have to dial in on my phone if I go away for a minute here. But commissioners, let's go ahead and bring it back to the commission. Okay, can you guys, Steve, did you have anything?
As far as the trees go, I don't have any issues with what they're proposing. I'm not seeing any magnificent specimens out there, especially the ones that they're proposing to remove. That redwood tree out front is in pretty poor shape as is, not only due to its structure, but also it's super thin and sorry looking. You know, I don't know if it will survive this construction or not, but I think I'm okay with them doing their best to follow the arborist recommendations to try to preserve it in place. Outside of any easements or right-of-way issues, and sticking just with the architecture, I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, the front elevation looks pretty large just because of that second story is showing. But when you're standing there looking at it, I couldn't see the second story back in there behind the netting for the first floor addition there out front. So it just doesn't present as massive as it looks in that front elevation in reality. I spoke with at least 2 neighbors who were super excited about the project and were all for it. I don't know if they're here or they didn't want to speak, but I did speak with 2 neighbors who were impacted directly by this project, and there were no objections there. So yeah, that's all I got. We lost her.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have any comments? This is Jeannie.
I think we lost Heather.
They're working on it.
She'll dial back in. The tree, Jeannie, as I understand it, we're really not talking about whether to, pardon me, to remove that redwood or not. Pardon me, because it has not had it hasn't had enough notice, so we're really not talking about tree removal. Is that correct?
That's correct. It did not get the proper noticing, so technically you cannot take any action on any proposed removal.
Okay. Okay, then the only question I have is about how the structure currently designed will jut out into what is a common area. Is that on the easement or is it not on the easement?
I don't believe any part of the structure is encroaching
Is on the okay,
into the easements. It's
okay.
Yeah, I think
when I went out there, I did notice. When I went out there, I did think, wow, that's going to kind of be in the driveway. But
yeah,
if it's not technically in the easement,
correct.
it just looks a little as it's currently configured. It juts out into what looks like the common driveway. But I guess that's not the issue. It is not the common driveway.
Yeah, it may be a paved area, but it's not part of the easement. So that, again, will have to be worked out between the property owners. But again, we can't
Okay.
enforce that.
Okay, because I
Pavement
think it's a very nice design. I don't have any problem with that. I think it fits in nicely. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
I guess it's, Brian Mekachek, do you want to give us, I'm on my phone now, so it's a little hard for me to see who's talking and who's not. I'm so sorry. Brian, I can look up at the screen and see you though. Brian, you want to weigh in?
Sure. I think that's a very challenging property to work on, and I think the design that they've come up with fits in. I spent quite a bit of time walking around the property and looking at it from the neighbor's perspective, and there's no other neighbors that have shown up to speak against it. So, and they were all noticed. So I can only assume that they're looking forward to it. I am concerned with the tree at the front because it is owned half by the city of Monte Sereno, and I realize that it's off the table right now, but I do think that any work that's done, they should try to do everything for that tree, and if it meets its demise, then we'll have to, I don't know what sort of bonding or whatever is put in place, but I would not like to establish a precedent where the city of Monte Sereno owns trees, or half of a tree, that then is damaged through construction. And I think that it seems like the garage at the back, when I looked at it, that has has met its end of its useful life. And I have, although I can appreciate keeping it in the setback and redoing the existing structure, it's going to be, you know, it'll be equivalent to new construction back there. I suspect that everyone knows that. So all in all, I think that this proposed development should enhance the area around it. And I didn't speak with any neighbors, but one did walk by, and he didn't mention anything one way or another. So I think I can support this project.
Thanks, Brian. I can support the project as well. I talked to 2 of the neighbors. Nobody is in opposition. People feel that it is going to be an improvement to what is there now. As for the redwood tree, I think these redwood trees are really hard on lots this size. They end up uprooting things, and I know that we're not considering it at this point, but I don't have a problem with it being removed in the future. I think Tony's done a good job addressing all of the issues associated with this difficult lot and the constraints of easements and whatnot, and leave it to the neighbors to, as Jeannie's recommended, to work out the problems with the easements. So I am in favor of this project. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the project. I'm just wondering if there were any conditions that we had talked about. Jeannie, I defer to you. Do we need to put any conditions on this?
I think the one item that the applicant's representative brought up relative to tree protection and consideration of how to best manage that protection during construction, he was willing to go by the arborist recommendation. So it might be something that the commission would want to consider conditioning, you know, the tree protection as contained in the arborist report submitted for this project.
Okay, and then the other one was, as I'm reflecting, there was some change to enhance the turnaround area at the back.
Again, all of those easements.
No, this had to do with the, I thought, positioning, and I don't know if I can clarify that.
Yeah, I think Tony mentioned shifting the hammerhead turnaround there to make it provide more distance between
Yes.
the driveway and the house itself.
Maybe we can say that Jeannie will work with the applicant for that adjustment to the plan.
I can't speak to whether Tony was indicating something that would go beyond the existing easements. If that's the case, I'm not sure the commission is in a position to require additional easement on these properties.
No, I think it had to do with the actual driveway itself.
Can we just leave that to planning to work that out with the applicant?
Yes.
Sounds reasonable to me.
So I think that's my motion.
You want to restate that motion?
Good luck.
Approve the plans as submitted, provided that the additional arborist recommendations to, or tree protection are included in the application.
Thank you.
I'll
Do we have a
second
second?
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Commissioner Wade seconded it. Roll call. Commissioner Kroc,
Approve, aye, yeah.
Commissioner Wade,
Aye.
Commissioner Mekachuk,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Harrington.
Aye.
Just to note that project passed 4-0 with approved as conditioned. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that is ends our meeting for the evening. We'll adjourn until the September site and architecture meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
You were gonna